first clash between the two teams this season. An in-depth look at the 49ers, Dolphins, all the playoff bubble teams, and of course, the best bets and the pleasers and teasers of the week. This is the Huddle for Week 13, presented by OddsChecker. I'm Pat Mayo, joined as always by Brian Matthews, Pam Maldonado, and Ross Tucker to break down the Week 13 slate. And gang, let's start with Thursday night. The Bills are at the Patriots. Bills favored by 5 right now in New England. Bills escape again on Thanksgiving Day with a late comeback against the Lions. And the Patriots, well, they found out what the forward pass was, so that was interesting for their offense, but all of a sudden their defense doesn't exist, and Kirk Cousins beat them in a night game, which just never happens for Kirk Cousins. But here we are, an AFC East showdown, the first of two between these two teams coming down the home stretch, which has huge implications on the AFC playoffs. So, Brian, I want to start with you. Do you think this is a great chance for the Pats to pull an upset here with the way that the Bills have been playing in the second half of these games lately?
Yeah, the Bills have looked beatable. And I mean, look, I don't want to judge too much off of last week's performance, but, you know, when you look at the Vikings, I mean, you're right. That offense looked good. The Vikings defense has been struggling. They made the Patriots offense look good. You know, I'm interested to see what they look like against the Bills. I think the Bills are beatable right now. And as far as this spread, you know, it's Thursday night football. Bill Belichick coach team. I think they keep it within 5.5. I think this is a tighter game than most people think. So I think they might have a chance for an upset. But look, I think the Vikings also made them look a lot better than they currently are on offense. So I'd like to see how they respond for a second week in a row and if they look serviceable.
Yeah, I'm with Brian, and I would say I don't like the Patriots getting the 5 points. I love it. Like, Mac Jones played by far his best game of the year. He was decisive. He played with conviction. That was awesome to see. Now they're playing at home on a Thursday night game. The only reason why they lost to the Vikings was their defense made some uncharacteristic mistakes. They had a couple special teams things go against them, which is not very Patriot-like. And they're playing against the Bills team that something's just not quite right. And I can't put my finger on it, but the Bills are not playing as well as they were earlier in the year. I actually think there's a great chance New England wins this game outright. But if they do lose the game, I think it's a close game. One of my favorite picks of the week is the Patriots getting these 5 points against the Buffalo Bills.
It's a consensus pick. I'm also on the Patriots. I'm not sure I'm quite ready to call for the upset, but I love the Patriots at home getting the 5. Mac Jones, as Ross alluded to, had his best showing of the season just last week. 72% completion, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And that's important to me because he had 0 interceptions, 0 turnovers, despite being sacked 3 times. And yes, you can say that it was against the Vikings, which is the worst secondary in the league. But I'm a huge believer that confidence is a thing, and Mac Jones just got his confidence back, which is huge for this offense. And the Bills, as you both mentioned it, they're kind of beatable right now. They allowed productive days from Jared Goff and Jacoby Brissett. Even Zach Wilson, the worst quarterback in the league, had his best completion of the season against the Bills. So that matters to me. Now you're getting Bill Belichick at home, not short week, but a full week of rest. But Thursday, time to prep. I love the Patriots getting the 5.
Everyone likes the Patriots. I wouldn't be stunned if we see this line get closer to the Patriots side in terms from going from 5 to 4 to 3. I don't know if it gets all the way down to 3, but I can see that the spread is going to be inching towards the Patriots just based on where the money's coming in, what everyone is saying. 5, too many points. We'll see how that turns out by the time it actually kicks off on Thursday evening. But let's talk about the playoff picture. I mentioned with the Bills and Patriots that has huge implications right now, but there are 8 bubble teams. And once Thanksgiving passes, there's a season that happens. And it's not Christmas. It's let's get ready for the NFL playoffs season. So we need to figure out which of these 4 of the 8 bubble teams are going to make the playoffs in the AFC and in the NFC. So I'm going to throw you out some odds here, Ross, and you tell me which is your favorite bet of these. You have the Bengals to make the playoffs, -250, or to miss the playoffs at +190. The Jets to make, it's basically a coin flip, -115 to make, -105 to miss. The Patriots, +175 to make the playoffs, despite the advantage over the Jets and winning both the games with them this season, and -225 to miss. The Chargers, minus 150 to make, plus 130 to miss. Then you go to the NFC, you have the Giants, plus 110 to make, minus 126 to miss. The Commanders, minus 165 to make, 130 plus 135 to miss. The Seahawks, minus 280 to make. The Falcons, plus 550 to make, despite only being a game back in the NFC South at the moment. Which of those 8 do you think are where you want to roll with?
This is going to surprise some people, but I kind of like the Bengals to miss the playoffs at plus 190. I know the Bengals just beat the Titans. So they're all like, wait, what? Ross, really? But it's plus money, and they have the hardest schedule moving forward of any of these teams to make the playoffs. So if I can get plus money on a team that has the hardest schedule, that's something I need to really consider. We'll see, when Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon get back. Sounds like it could be this week. But I still think that's a team to be thinking about betting against, primarily because of the schedule, because that's a big, big consideration this time of year is who do they have in these last 5 or 6 games?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Pam, to look at the Bengals schedule the rest of the season, just to Ross's point, they're at home against the Chiefs, and then they're at home against the Browns, with Deshaun Watson presumably back against them in that game, at the Buccaneers, at the Patriots, home Bills, home Ravens. Gets dicey very quickly.
It does. And you're talking about some teams that have really good pass rushes. And I know that we've seen Joe Burrow still manage to win games despite being sacked all the time, but eventually that's going to catch up to them, and we're going to see what happens. For me, I like similar reason the Giants, because they too have a very difficult schedule based off of the type of football that they play as a unit. The Giants are a one-dimensional rushing offense. So I like the Giants to miss the playoffs because you have a one-dimensional rushing offense. Well, they faced Washington twice. That's one of the best defenses against the run in the league. Giants, they can't apply quarterback pressure. Well, then they have to face Kirk Cousins in Minnesota with one of the best wide receiver cores in the league. Well, then the Giants also can't defend the run. Well, then they face the Eagles twice. So based off of what they have lacking and what they're able to bring as a team, this is a very difficult schedule for the Giants themselves. So they may find ways to be competitive, as we saw the Giants be competitive against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, but they still didn't win. They may have covered, but they didn't win. Wins are a tall task right now for the Giants. So I like the Giants to miss the playoffs.
I look at Seattle, and when we're talking about the strength of schedule and who's remaining, I mean, you've got a team here that faces the Panthers, and then they get the Rams twice, which at the beginning of the year could have sounded like a daunting task. But, I don't know who's going to be out there for them. Another team that, look, I'm not taking it, but I'm looking at the remaining schedule, and it's enticing, is the Chargers. And they sit a little bit further back. Now, I know the history with the Chargers, so I'm not taking it. But as far as the strength of schedule, and looking at it, they've got, by far what looks to be the easiest schedule on paper. But I do like Seattle to make the playoffs, even though, you've got some other teams with better odds.
Well, it may not be the most marquee game of the late set in Week 13, but the most intriguing one, maybe, between the Miami Dolphins heading west to play the San Francisco 49ers, Mike McDaniel going back to San Francisco to take on his former mentor of Kyle Shanahan. There's already the trash talk going on, and it all comes from our main man, Colonel Mostert. Raheem Mostert saying, we have a way better talent here. That's what he told GoLongTD.com about the Dolphins in the per NBC Sports area. It's going to get spooky. And on Tua, Mostert added, we have a quarterback who can actually sling it. Now, San Francisco's favored by 3.5 in this game, but we don't know who's necessarily playing. Like, Jimmy G hurt his knee last week. No one's really talking about it. He's going through tests this week. He's probably going to play. Christian McCaffrey, banged up. Elijah Mitchell, out 6 weeks. Deebo Samuel, dealing with a hamstring problem. It's not a great time to be taking on the 49ers, and it's funny, on their side of the ball, yeah, Jeff Wilson left the game. He came back a week ago. It's Raheem Mostert who actually missed the game a week ago. So let's try to figure this out a little bit. Both these teams are 6-5 against the spread this season. So Pam, the Dolphins are 8-1 to get out of the NFC. The Niners are plus 275 to get out of the NFC. So in this game, and with those odds, who do you like better?
I love the Dolphins plus 3.5. I love them to cover. I love them to win. It is almost a rule of thumb that you fade the team that does all the shit talking before the game. And that's exactly what we're getting from the 49ers right now. You have the injuries, you have the question marks, and you have you want to say what you want about Tua, but the data doesn't lie. Ross, I know that you can't get enough of my stats, and that's why you're here. So I'm going to say it. Tua Tagovailoa, he is number 1 in adjusted yards per attempt, number 1 in deep ball completion percentage, number 1 in completion inside the red zone. Tua is doing absolutely great things with this offense because he has the 2 best wide receivers in the league, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, both top 10 in yards after the catch. They are just so fast, and this is an offense that San Francisco hasn't yet defended. You're talking about speed, you're talking about production against a Niners secondary who's played only 2 solid passing offenses. They got trucked by the Chiefs, allowing 423 yards, 12.4 average, and they barely beat the Chargers by 6 points, who were missing its top 2 wide receivers. I love the Dolphins this week. Look at my excitement. I'm so excited.
I'm with Pam. I'm all over the Dolphins. I mean, the way they've been playing as of late, 30-0 at halftime against the Texans. You're going to give me whatever it is, 3.5, looking like 4 points right now on my board. First of all, I love anytime I get 3.5 or 4. Because when they say 3.5 or 4, it's basically almost a toss-up game. But then you're getting more than a field goal. That's significant. Dolphins playing really well, both sides of the ball. I love what Pat said about how banged up the Niners are.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy G's banged up. No Elijah Mitchell, and McCaffrey clearly not 100% is a problem for a run-based team. I also think the protege, Mike McDaniel, is going to have a few things up his sleeve for the mentor, Kyle Shanahan. Another one of my I like that we're highlighting the game that are my favorite picks this week. It makes me feel like I can talk with more conviction all over the Dolphins +4. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing here. I think also, too, this is going to be the week we see that Jeff Wilson's departure is going to hit them a little harder than they thought, because Eli Mitchell's a very good running back. Shanahan's always going to utilize those 2 backs. Now they're going to have to bring in some unproven guys. We don't know how healthy McCaffrey is. Amongst the other players that you guys mentioned. Love +3.5. I'm also interested to see where this ends up game time.
Well, we get a round of Patriots. We get a round of Dolphins against the spread. So big props to the points in the AFC East apparently this week. But we need to figure out what the best bets of the week are going to be. So let's get to pick 'em. Brought to you by My OC Premium. And don't forget to head over to oddschecker.com and sign up for your very own My OC Premium account. For less than just $1 a day, you'll have access to our gambling experts, exclusive picks for NFL, MLB, college sports, NHL, UFC, NBA, golf, and so much more. Last week was a holiday, so I'm going to give the panel a pass on a 2-4 week. But Pam, we got time for redemption here. You went 0-2 last week because you went with unders. No one likes unders. Overs are a lot of fun to cheer for. I'm guessing you're not going with unders this week.
I'm not. I'm going back to the spreads, and I'm going to choose the best quarterback in the league. Thank you, Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs -2 at the Bengals. This is a huge game for Kansas City because the Chiefs still are trying to play for that number 1 seed in the AFC. And there's a huge difference. I have to look back at last year's game because there's a huge difference between that matchup compared to when the Chiefs lost to the Bengals last season in the AFC Championship. The number 1 difference that I see, and I've recognized all season long, is that the Chiefs last year were the 2nd worst in the NFL for applying quarterback pressure. Now they have Chris Jones, Carlos Dunlap, and Frank Clark, who have all vastly improved, 5th best in the NFL. That is huge change, number 1. Number 2, Patrick Mahomes threw for 2 interceptions in that matchup. The only way that you can be competitive against the Chiefs if you force Mahomes to make mistakes, which is something that he doesn't do too often. And as good as the defense has been for Cincinnati this season, the Bengals have forced 0 turnovers in back-to-back games. And that was against Pittsburgh and Tennessee. Mahomes is a different beast. I love Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs and Andy Reid, -2 at home to the Bengals, who still have one of the worst offensive lines in the league.
Okay, so Chiefs -2 for Pam. Brian, what do you got coming up?
All right. First one here, I'm going to go ahead and look. I like the idea, and we've talked about it before, taking teams, off bad losses. The Ravens, they haven't looked great the last couple of weeks. I get that. They just had a tough loss, to Jacksonville. But I look at them this week and I think, all right, -8 seems like a good enough number against Denver. Denver just got brutalized by Carolina. They made Sam Darnold look pretty darn good. They made Deontay Foreman rush for over 100 yards. They couldn't get anything moving. And I don't know where this stat originally came from, but as we sit today, you look at it, Carson Wentz has 2 more passing touchdowns than Russell Wilson. and he hasn't played since week 6. I mean, you saw his teammates yelling at him. So I'm going to jump on a team that's coming off a bad loss against a team that just seems to be in disrepair.
Ross, you got 2. Let's hear them.
Yeah, I love when I get to go back to back. I get a big window to tell you my picks. I'm going to start with the Tennessee Titans getting the 5 points in Philly to take on the Eagles. I'm sure Pam has her whole list, like for Santa Claus, of all the reasons why the 10-1 Philadelphia Eagles stink. So she can tell you all those. All I'm going to tell you is that the Titans are good, and they play close, low-scoring games. So you're going to give me 5 points against the Eagles, who they look good against the Packers. They're not going to run like that against the Titans. The Titans' run defense is nasty. I love the way the Titans play football. Nobody gets more out of their talent than Mike Vrabel and the Titans. This is going to be like a 20-17 game. The Eagles will probably win because, Pam, that's what they do. They win the game, which is a really important aspect of trying to play football. They win the game, but they're not going to win by more than 5. So I will take the Titans. I'll take Vrabel. Bounce back game after the disappointing game against the Bengals. Eagles are now down, guys, at the positions where they can least afford it. Nickelback, tight end, safety. So I think the Titans have a chance to win. Probably not, but they'll keep it close. I also love the Colts. Everybody's down on the Colts because of what happened Monday night. 10.5 points? That's a lot of points. 10.5? Now it's up to 11 as I look at my board against the Cowboys. Cowboys are good, but the Colts play pretty solid defense. They'll try to run the ball on the Cowboys. Cowboys will win the game, but I'll take the double digits. I think the Colts are at least playing hard. Every game they've won one. They've been right there, a play away in the other 2. I don't envision the Cowboys blowing them out. So give me the Titans +5 and the Colts +11.
Well, good news for the Titans this week that if they're just somehow trailing by a touchdown and decide, hey, we need to kick a field goal for no reason, at least they'll cover the spread this time, which would be nice, getting the 5 instead of the 3. But Brian, you took the Ravens with your first pick. Where are you going with pick number 2?
Hey, I'm going right back to the wagon now, which is the New York Jets. Mike White at quarterback, he looked good. I mean, you got Elijah Moore. You got Elijah Moore back, on the field. Garrett Wilson went off. They look really good. I mean, their defense is very, very good. So I'm going to go with the Jets +3 in Minnesota. I think Minnesota's a solid team, but the way I look at it, I really like the Jets defense. The only thing that's been keeping me from being, more on their side, I guess, during this year is the fact that their offense has been terrible. And I'm not ready to say that their offense is incredible now, but they've got signs. He's getting it to his playmakers. They're making plays. This isn't the only game that he's ever come in and played pretty well. So I like them at +3 against Minnesota. I think Kirk Cousins will struggle. I think that the Vikings could win this game, but I also think that the Jets might be in a nice little upset spot.
Pam, let's finish it off. The first 5 sound pretty good. You make it 6-0, okay?
Well, I did also want to go with the Titans because, fading the Eagles. But Ross took that away from me real quick. But I will want to add that I have been super impressed with Ryan Tannehill because he has been, over the last 2 seasons, one of my favorite players to fade in the props market. Always bet his passing yards under, and it was gold. Except for 3 straight games, he has thrown for at least 255, 300, 291 yards. That is just something unlike that what we've seen from Tannehill. If he can keep that passing game alongside with King Henry, yeah, I love the Titans this week. Now back to my bet. I love also the Lions +1.5 against the Jags. Now I am a huge Jags fan, so for me to fade the Jags is like unprecedented. I just don't like to do it. But this was a pick earlier on Tuesday morning, and now the Jags are 1.5 favorites. I love the fight of the Lions. The culture that Dan Campbell has created for this team is just unparalleled to others. Same could be said about Doug Peterson, however, so I think this is going to be a really great matchup. But the Lions are absolutely in it. 3 straight wins over the Packers, the Bears, and the Giants. A 3-point loss to the Bills on Thanksgiving. And the only question that I have is, are all the weapons healthy for the Lions? I am looking at you, Amon-Ra St. Brown, because if the answer is yes, then the Lions +1.5, Lions on the money line, Lions in a teaser, because Jared Goff away, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Jared Goff at home, 15 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And not to mention that the Jags, my Jags, had to pull off the impossible to get a win over the Ravens last week. The Jags win was the first win in franchise history, trailing by 7+ points in the final minute of regulation. They were 0-183, and then they won. And the Jags 1-4 against the spread on the road. I love the Lions this week.
Those are the sides that we like this week. But, sometimes people aren't comfortable with the number that we're getting. We need to prop it up a bit. So we need to get to Tuck's teasers, where he's 10-0 in his past 10 picks on legs of teasers. So, Ross, how could you ever lose?
I got a lot this week. There are a lot of good teaser legs available. I don't know what the sports books are doing, because I'm just destroying them single-handedly week in and week out with my boy Wong, Stanford Wong's teasers. All right, here's what we got. Write them down, everybody. We got the Ravens from -8.5 down to -2.5 against the Broncos. Lock. Then we got the Lions. Pam already gave you all the reasons, but they're only getting 1.5. So tease them up to 7.5. Lock. Then we've got the Giants. They're playing the Commanders. That'll be a close, low-scoring game. So take them from +2.5 up to +8.5. Lock. Then we go Seattle Seahawks. I don't even know who they're playing. Oh, they're playing the Rams. They're laying 7.5. Take them down to -1.5. They're not going to lose to the Rams. Lock. Then we'll go to the Bengals. They're getting points at home against the Chiefs. They'll be able to keep it close. Bengals up to +8 against my boy Patrick Mahomes. Lock. And finally, the Raiders. They're playing the Chargers. They're getting 2 points. Take them up to +8. Lock. And if any of these lose, I'm going to be so mad at myself for this whole little bit where I said lock after every one of them, because that would be my fault then for jinxing it. Lock.
Ross, you realize just because you're 10-0 over your past 10 picks, you don't need to go 20-0 with the next time that we hear you talk, right?
You know what? Hey, I feel very good about a lot of those teaser legs. Now it's just a matter of how you pair them up, because they're not all going to hit, right? So hopefully.
Oh, no, you just said they were all going to hit. I just played them all as one teaser.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. All right, good. Well, then, good. Pat, then you're rich forever. You don't even do the show anymore.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. So we have to lose now just so I can get invited back next week to continue to host the show. You don't want to be talking to a mannequin, which many have said that I actually am. But I do want to thank all of you for being on the panel. Ross Tucker, Pam Maldonado, and Brian Matthews. I want to thank you all for watching. Smash a like while you're there and sub to OddsChecker US while you're watching this as well. I'm Pat Mayo. We'll see you next week. Before we let you go, we wanted to tell you about the Spread Challenge, our way of giving you a chance to win $100 on us by simply predicting the spread of any game correctly. There are 3 free and easy steps to get involved. First, you must follow our Instagram page at OddsChecker-US. Next, find and like our pinned post with all the week's spreads. Then the hard part. Pick the spread correctly on any game, and if you're right, you're automatically entered to win $100. So follow us, like the post, put in your picks, and good luck.